All right, here we go. The 60-Minute Fix webinar, turning new ideas into compelling stories. So in this hour, we're going to learn how to mine your brain for golden content ideas. You've got them. They're all up here, but all you need to do is kind of get them to come out. You're also going to evaluate the compelling factor, whether these ideas hold water, whether they can take you somewhere, and because some ideas aren't going to work. Some ideas are good, but they're not going to get you to where you need to go. So we're going to identify what's interesting to you, what kind of gets you going. And then finally, complete your writing project. That's really important, right? If you don't complete something, just sort of have a drawer of ideas, and you don't have something that you can put on your website or put in your memoir or put in a brochure when you're on your way to a conference or a meeting with somebody. It's really key that this happens. And finally, publishing your story on your website and beyond. Before we get started, let me give you a little bit of background about me. I've been a professional writer for over 20 years. Yes, it's not just good retinol cream or anything. I have been doing this since I was 13 years old, and I'm 32 now. I started as a teen movie critic, as the old sort of lore of my life goes. And from there, I became a freelance writer, and I was also a paralegal for 8 years. Sort of go figure, throw that in. And I kept writing. I wrote for local publications when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then moved on to writing for the New York Times, Forbes, Vice, and the Huffington Post. And then more importantly, I am a big lover of nachos, an enthusiastic payer of extra guacamole. Always. I mean, just get it. Like, life's too short. So let's get started. So here's a question for you. When do you get your best ideas? Think about that just for a quick second. Okay, maybe it's waking up in the middle of the night. That happens to me so much. I have to leave a notepad by my bed. I need my phone with Evernote or Notepad open. I need something that I can go, okay, I'm writing this. Standing in the shower. I can't tell you how many times I've been at my computer and I've been ready to write something, and I go take a shower, and that's when it all occurs to me. So I wonder if that's similar to you. Maybe that happens as well. And then talking with a friend over coffee. Sometimes it's really awesome just to kind of sit there and share ideas. And when you feel comfortable enough with somebody, you feel like you can share a lot about yourself and what you're hoping for, the things you're working on. So that's always a great time to sort of brainstorm and feel comfortable with somebody. Next, when don't you get your best ideas? It's almost just as important. It's just as important as when you do get your good ideas. So here's the big one, right? Staring at a blank Word document. There is nothing happening when you're staring at a blank Word document. I just talked about this in my newsletter this morning. You're not going to get anything done. You're just going to go, oh my gosh, I wish I could sort of will some words on this paper. I need to get this done by such and so time, whatever artificial deadline you've made for yourself. And it just doesn't work. Surfing on social media. Oh my gosh. Yeah, another one I'm super guilty of. I'm on social media going, oh my gosh, look, Facebook knew that I wanted those shoes. Well, of course they did, But you can get caught up in that, and 2-3 hours can go by and you haven't done anything. And then finally, beating yourself up for not working. That's time that you could have spent relaxing, eating a sandwich, taking a nap, and then coming to work. But unfortunately, I've spent time going, oh, I really need to do this. I got to do this now. And I've said that to Laura. I'm like, I need to do this now. But I really should spend that time enjoying myself and then getting to work. Now, here's the really good news. Your ideas are already inside of you. What? Your good ideas are already in here. They're already here. So, even better news, you can look inside of yourself. You can get to these ideas instead of looking outside of yourself. Because when you look outside of yourself, you may be trying to get people's approval. Oh, should it be like this? Do people want to hear about that? And once you start getting into that game, you can't listen to what's in here. And it's very, very hard to tell your own authentic story that way. In fact, almost impossible. You really have to sort of listen to what's going on inside. I really like this quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of Eat, Pray, Love, as we all know. But she also wrote this awesome book called Big Magic, which I really recommend. I get a lot from it every time I take a read. But what she says is, the universe buries strange jewels deep within us all, and then stands back to see if we can find them. So that's very much looking inside of yourself and realizing it's all there. You just need to mine it and get it out into some form. So truthfully, creative ideas come and go when they want. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her book, where she equates creativity to a gremlin or some sort of creature. I think she says Dobby in one of her TED Talks as well. Some sort of gremlin that comes and visits you and like, hey, I got an idea. So the gremlin is sort of almost an outward expression of this inner dialogue I'm talking about. And they need you to create something. They need you to do it now. It's not later. It's not 30 days from now. It's now. So really your only job is to preserve what's coming to you in some form. And that takes the weight off immeasurably. Now you are just recording what's coming out instead of feeling like you have to create it from scratch. You don't really need to. And this is a big one. Ideas have a way of leaving you if you don't catch them soon enough. Uh-oh, is that a pug or an idea gremlin? Or is it both? Well, the idea gremlin knows when you're surfing social media, knows when you're doing all those things you shouldn't be doing, staring at a blank document. And you know what? They don't care. They're like, hey, please get this done or I'm leaving. There is a definite way to do this too, and that is through sort of a step-by-step approach. And what I've come up with in my time writing and helping other people write are these 5 steps from idea to compelling story. Step 1, catch your idea before it disappears. Now you may think, oh, she must mean that I'm going to sit down, I'm going to take copious notes, I'm going to type a few things on the computer. I actually don't mean that at all. I think you should do the opposite. I suggest you go for a walk, watch a favorite movie. I'm a big fan of The Birdcage. Wander in a bookstore or library, or eat lunch. That sounds very basic, but I think a lot of us, especially if you have your own business or you're having a side hustle or something you're doing, we often forget to eat and take care of ourselves. And when you don't eat, you feel depleted. You don't feel like you can do your best. I know that I feel that way when I am not eating well or not eating at all. Step 2, get your ideas on paper or phone. Again, I'm not picky. Get it on paper or on the phone. Either way, get it down. So when in doubt, write it out. Maybe you're on your walk. Maybe you're off to get lunch and you've got your notepad with you. You have your iPad, you have your laptop. Find a nice spot and just start writing a few notes. What's great about that is you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to create all of this now. You really don't. You can start small and it will start to grow. Again, use a medium that works best for you. Paper, phone, whatever you have is great. And then finally, get it down even when you're doing something else. This is something my very good friends and my partner Laura and I sort of, they have to unfortunately deal with from me. I'll hear a funny quote, or I will think of an idea and I go, hold on. And then I go and I get my paper and pen and I write it down. And they just unfortunately have to deal with that. At step 3, be ruthless. Really start to see, okay, I've got all these great ideas that I've started to create and sort of trying to bring out. It's a lot like when you were a kid, did you ever do that lima bean experiment where you put a lima bean in a plastic bag and then it would sort of start to grow, and maybe you put a couple in there and maybe you only have room for 1 or 2 of those to actually plant in a pot. Well, this is your lima bean time. You need to determine, okay, which is the one I want to follow through with? which is the one that I will have time to cultivate and will enjoy cultivating. So do you actually want to follow through is a very important question. Do you have a plan for following through? That's something that I think a lot of us don't do. We just expect, okay, I've got this idea, I'm just going to plot ahead, and there you go. Well, maybe think about what that looks like for you, and it looks like something different for everybody as well. And finally, what is your own personal expectation? What are you hoping to get from it? What are you hoping comes out of it? Let's say you have a biography you want to write, a biography either as a book or even an about me for your website. What are you hoping people learn about you? How do you want it to sound? How are you hoping to just sort of appear in the marketplace or just to your friends and family? That's very important. Step 4, find your ideal reader/client. Now you'll see this step is definitely down the list in the top 5 here, because the first thing you want to do is to look within yourself, because that's where all the answers lie and where a lot of your creativity is. So once you're able to do that, you're golden. And now you can start thinking about your audience. This is something I recommend if you're doing writing in a business capacity, for your, as I mentioned, about page, or home page, or a landing page you're doing. If you're doing a more creative writing pursuit, let's say memoir, flash fiction, things like that, I would recommend doing a full draft before you consider an audience. But still, similar idea. You have to sort of look at yourself first and then grow from there. And these are the 3 questions you'll want to answer. How do you want your reader to feel? What do you want them to learn? And would you want to read what you wrote? So all these questions are a slight variation on asking somebody, well, what do you want from me? What do you want me to write? Instead, you're actually putting yourself in the seat of the reader, and you're asking yourself these questions as the reader. So you're playing a little bit of pretend there. So when you couch it like that, instead of, oh my gosh, what do people want from me? And make it more about, oh, is this something I would want to read? Well, that changes the whole game. And then finally, write the first draft. Now, as I just recommended, if you're writing fiction or something more like that, I would write the first draft or rough draft first before considering what your audience might feel. But I would determine what story you might want to read. I've heard of a lot of people say, you know, I wrote this book because I needed a book like this, or I wrote this article because I needed to read this. So I would still take it from that perspective. So please write like no one's watching. Give yourself time to write straight through, block off a few hours if you can, and then finish that rough draft in one sitting. Now, if it's a big thing, like we've mentioned books or maybe a longer form article, I would chunk that out. I would say, okay, well, Tuesday I'm going to do this for 3 hours, and Thursday I'm going to do another 3 hours. Simple as that. So these are the 5 steps from idea to compelling story. As we just talked about, step 1, catch your idea before it disappears. Get your ideas on paper or your phone. Be ruthless. Step 4, find your ideal reader or client, who is actually you. And then finally, step 5, write the first draft. So with all these in mind, that's a really good start, right? The gremlin is somewhat appeased. The gremlin sees that you're trying, that you're going for it. So are we there yet? Are we done? Actually, there's more to do, and that's really exciting. So you kind of want to know what this process really looks like, right? We've sort of laid out the steps. What does that look like in real time? So my friend Jacqueline here, she's a coach. I met her in B school, and we really hit it off. And we started working together on one of her offerings. So Jacqueline works with women, mostly women, who are looking to have a change in their life. They are people who were formerly, backpacking through Europe with just some soda or beer in their backpacks, or they were, they were wild. They were living their lives. And then something happened along the way. Something happened where, hey, okay, I have a kid now, and I'm married, and I'm in the suburbs. How did this happen? And while she's happy there, we don't necessarily want to say that's a bad thing. There are things that she misses about her life and that she would like to incorporate in a more sophisticated way into her current life. So this was Jacqueline's page before we started working together. Let me take a quick sip of water. So beforehand, Jacqueline had written this headline, and the headline is right here. So you want to be a badass, action taken, change maker. And I didn't think this headline was bad at all. In fact, I thought it definitely spoke to her audience. It just needed a little bit more personalization. And I'll talk about more what that means in just a second. But let me show you the subheadline as well. Her subheadline was, I can help. So Jacqueline's very helpful. I mean, she's a farmer. She also has her own band with her husband. Like, she's really cool. And she's extremely helpful and fabulous. But saying I can help is something I think a lot of people would say. And we wanted to personalize it to what she's about, especially since she is a badass who is now appreciating 8 hours of sleep and eating her vegetables. And that's kind of where she was coming from. So here's what I did. After helping and working with Jacqueline for only an hour, we came up with some headline ideas and some sub-headline ideas that really packed a punch for her. And we used those 5 steps that I just mentioned. So first of all, we made a little bit of a change here. Instead of the previous, let me walk you back to that real quick. So you want to be a badass, action-taken change maker. We shortened that, but added a couple of other important words. Want to be a badass with benefits, an action-taken change maker. So we put with benefits there because, yeah, these women are badasses, but they also understand, all right, I'm getting my sleep, I'm taking my makeup before I go to bed. They are all on board for self-care and taking care of themselves, even while they're having a great time in life. And that's really important. It's really important to find her reader, find her ideal person who's checking her out. And that ideal person, again, as we talked about, is her, reflected in the people she wants to work with. So that's the new headline right there. The new subheadline, instead of I can help, says, rev up your most burning desires with our girls-only group of like-minded badasses. Now this is really describing what she's providing, right? She provides one-on-one coaching and group coaching with women. And so what we wanted to say is sort of evoke an image, right? When we think badass, what do we think of? We think of motorcycles. We think of, leather jackets, sort of in that stereotypical way, of course. But we brought some of that imagery into the language to excite the person who would be reading it and hopefully say, oh my gosh, that was me. That was me 15 years ago. Or I still got the hog, or I got a new hog. And it's great. So I really like what it says here. I'm really excited that it says it's like-minded badasses. You're going to meet a group of people who get you. So this is a little bit fuzzy just because I took it off of a video she had sent me. But what I just kind of want you to see is this was her original about me. She had written just a welcome, my name is Jacqueline, and she listed some of the things she was. But what was interesting about her about me is it actually didn't reflect her. She was definitely writing something she thought people wanted to hear. She's a wife, a mom, a business owner, a farmer, and a singer, and sort of putting it in that order. But during our conversation, she actually said she didn't want to write a lot about being a mom. She really wanted to focus on women who want to better their life as themselves and not just focusing on kids. That was a really important detail. There are many businesses out there that focus on mom issues and kids, but what she wants to do is talk about wellness for the women outside of being a mom, which I think is very cool. She describes herself as a multi-passionate badass, which I thought was really neat. And I felt like we could really punch it up some more and go through those 5 steps again to really make it pop. So here's what we did. We really highlighted that she's a multi-passionate coach for women. She has all this work that she does, and we really honed it in. We said, hi, I'm Jacqueline, a multi-passionate coach for women, several companies, and plenty of projects on my to-do list. I know what it's like to fly the plane while building it. That kind of language really gets to people as well. That's something that I experience as an entrepreneur with my own business, and I know a lot of you out there right now have your own businesses, and you feel the same way. So one of my favorite phrases in this one is, as a self-professed open book, the women I work with and my friends always tell me, I don't know why, I just told you that. So that's a very natural phrase, right? We have said that to people. We have said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just told you that. That was something that I didn't plan to let out there. But you were talking to somebody who was very sensitive and kind, your best friend, or maybe somebody you just met that you have that sort of cosmic connection with. That was one of those things that you write down. Remember earlier I said that I will sort of drop everything and write something down that someone says or an idea. That was one of these phrases. When Jacqueline said that phrase, I'm like, oh, that's it. That this has to go in there. So you'll see that we use a little profanity, but kind of, bleep it out for now, so I guess Google doesn't get angry. But we use language that her people would use, that the women she worked with would use. So they curse, they're not afraid to do that, and to talk about their old life in context with their current life. So these first ideas, compelling story bits, came from a 1-hour session, which is sort of unbelievable that we did that. We went through those first 5 steps in the webinar. We went through the headline ideas, paragraphs, and sentences, and it became clear in that hour that, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to shape it. Jacqueline and I were able to get through all of that together in a pretty short amount of time because she was able to tell me about it. And sometimes talking it out with someone, like talking with someone over a coffee, can really clarify what's going on. So the 5 steps from idea to compelling story got us to that point. You're probably looking at this going, Joanne, that is a blank page. Why are you showing me a blank page? Well, this was Jacqueline's before when we started together. There was nothing here that talked about her ideal person that she wanted to talk with and to get to know and potentially work with. But after an hour, we had all this. In fact, I have another paragraph, but it was getting a little bit long for this slide. But here is something, and I don't expect you to read all of this, but I'll read a little bit off to you and show you how specific it is, how specifically we were able to write towards the people that she's looking for. The ICA is your ideal client avatar, or you're just your ideal client. A woman in her early 30s to mid-50s with elementary school kids and older who are independent and can take care of themselves. A woman who can let go of control of being a helicopter parent. And then as we get a little bit more deeply into it, she's more of a beer drinker than a wine drinker. She can't get enough of Indian food because it's spicy, and she studied abroad in India when she was in college. She backpacked to Europe when she took a gap year after high school, defying her parents' wishes. So this is somebody who's adventurous and not afraid to get what she wants, and now might be in a more settled time of life and is looking to get that back. And here is what we actually worked from. We worked inside a Google document, and these are some of the notes we had. The top notes that aren't highlighted didn't make it to the final cut, but that's okay. They got us to where we needed. So you'll see there's some fun ones here, and we were sort of focused on spice and fire. That's what kind of was attracting Jacqueline, and I thought was sort of a really good metaphor. So we have, are you ready to spice up your life and kick some ass? Let's turn your life up to an 11. Are there any Spinal Tap fans out there who know that? And then my favorite was this one, give that flaming cheese in your favorite Greek restaurant a run for its money. It's very colorful, right? and Jacqueline, she really liked it. And in the end, it was just, we needed to focus more on what her client would want. They don't necessarily take in all of the fine flaming Greek cheeses on a regular basis, but that's okay. And she sent me a great picture of flaming cheese that she was having about a week ago. And so, yay, we bond over flaming cheese now. How great. But this was a big one too. This was kind of like that other sentence I mentioned. I want to be a badass for the rest of my very long, healthy life. Wow. That one kind of grabbed me by the lapels. She had said it in so many words, and then I crafted it this way. And I was like, wow, that really encompasses what you're about. Badasses who want to be healthy and who want to live adventurous lives. Perfect. So you see, this is where we were drafting from, using those 5 steps. And boom, it got onto her About Me page. And it looks great. It's really speaking to her audience. And there you go. Really happy about it. So just in case you're taking notes, which I hope you are, if you're not, I'll be sure you get a recording of this webinar. But these, again, are those 5 steps from idea to compelling story. Step 1, catch your idea before it disappears. Step 2, get your ideas on paper or phone. Step 3, be ruthless. Determine, okay, do I really want to do this idea? Is this something I want to do? And if you have several good ideas, just prune them to 1 or 2 and start really fleshing those out. Step 4, find your ideal reader client. Again, you're actually looking for yourself in all of this. It's like one of those really awesome romantic comedies where it's like, you've been in front of my face all of this time and I didn't even see you. Well, it's you. You've been in front of you this whole time. So when you connect to yourself, you're connecting to your future readers and hopefully clients if you're in business. And so that's great. Now you've got something that you would want to read, and that means other people want to read it. If any of you are big memoir or nonfiction fans, you know that there are some books out there that you love to read and that may be about subjects that you haven't personally experienced or you would like to personally experience. And even if it's a narrow niche topic, you're into it and you can find the universal themes there. Now, you wouldn't write something and go, this is going to have a universal theme and everyone's going to love it. No, you're going to write it just as the place you're coming from and then see what happens because the people will come. You build it, they will come. And finally, step 5, write that first draft. Get it done. Writing that first draft can be a lot. But once you have the words on paper, you are no longer facing that blank Word document. Nobody likes it. It's terrible. But once you have some words on there, you can actually start to work with it. So how did Jacqueline do this? You know, she did this with the 5 steps I've outlined, and you can take those today and go and do, which makes me very happy. Now you have a set of tools that will take you there. But how did Jacqueline get her About Me done in time? She had a launch that was due in a week, and she really wanted to get it out there, and she needed somebody who could help her out with that. So she did this through the 60-minute fix, which is what I've just outlined. So we have this joke with the 60-minute fix, which if you've watched the video, you've seen that, which is on the 60-minute fix website. But we ask, what can't you do in 60 minutes? Well, you assemble anything from IKEA? That sounds terrible. Recover from an episode of The Handmaid's Tale? Don't tell me about this week's episode. I've still got to see it, but yeah, it takes me a few hours to get over it. And then blow dry your own hair? I'm not doing it. I don't have time. I have to live my life. So luckily, there are things you can do in 60 minutes. Whew. And those include write your About Me. So we just noticed we did that for Jacqueline and her homepage. We were able to knock out her ideal client and do some work on her About Me page in an hour. So she was able to have that ready. Second, revamp your homepage. So she had some writing already in place that we could work with, which is awesome, and we turned it into something beautiful. And then edit articles and story pitches. I just did this for someone recently, and it was a great experience. She's looking to write a story about jewelry, and she just needed a little bit of help understanding, okay, well, how would this look as a pitch to an editor or someone who might like her to write it up? And it was just a totally awesome experience. So when should you get your fix? Well, you could definitely, as I said, take these 5 tips and start writing away and getting it done. And there is no real substitute for a second pair of eyes as well, especially a second pair of eyes who's been doing it for a long time. So what I would recommend is that you go in for maybe a tune-up, or you have something already. Maybe you have your About Me done and you need someone to review it to make sure that it's on target for what you need. Or you just have a bunch of notes and you just need someone to go, okay, here, we'll put this here and we'll do that, and there you go. Either way, you can get it done in an hour. And I've done it with people, and it's great. So you could do it one time for one project. You could also do a monthly tune-up where it's like, okay, I got my About Me page done. I'd like to do some work on my home page. And I've also got this really great course that I'm writing. Well, let's take a look at that outline for that course, or anything like that, and we can do it. Or we can do a weekly accountability. This is great. I have my own writing mentors, and they are invaluable to me. I have one writing mentor in particular that I run past my pitches, my articles, all that good stuff, and they are not afraid to tell me, hey, you need to edit this, or hey, let's say this like that. It's great. I love it. So there's Jacqueline again. Jacqueline, very sweet Jacqueline, who did the 60-minute fix with me using the 5 steps I outlined. She says, I recommend the 60-minute fix to anyone looking to get crystal clear on their vision or goal. Just really happy with how things turned out with her, and I can't wait to see how her business continues to grow. And then Kajal is great. I worked with her on that pitch about jewelry. She says, Joanne's very good at getting to the heart of things I wanted to say. Would definitely recommend working with her. Likewise, she's great. If you're looking for jewelry or someone who knows a lot about jewelry, she's your person. And then finally, Corey. Joanne was a breath of fresh air. Already it's making a difference in my engagement. I knew words were powerful, but when you understand what converts people, it makes writing copy so much more fun. Had a blast with her. We worked on her landing page, and she wanted to reach people who were looking to not diet necessarily, nobody likes to diet, but to basically get their food intake and exercise on track. So that was really nice to work with her on. So what about you? We've learned a lot today. I'm sure this is a lot of information to take in, but what is one writing project that you might have in your action item folder? I know we all have one. I hear it all the time. I'll have friends say, oh, I'm working on my memoir, or I've really got to finish my website. I wrote my bio, but I'm not sure about it. So maybe you have an About Me section that needs a little bit of love. You've got all the pieces there. They just need to be put the right way. Or you've got some great notes. It's like, okay, now I really want to make this into something. Your biography. Maybe you're off to a conference to talk with life coaches if you're a life coach, or other people in your industry. And you just need something that feels like you, that's in your own voice, and that really works. Your homepage, that is the first page that people generally see. And that is your first opportunity for people to get to know you. So you might want some boffo headlines, great subheadlines that are quick and fun and tell people exactly what you're about. And then, like with Jacqueline, you may need an ideal customer statement. Boy, that changed my life when I wrote sort of who my ideal person was, and it really helped out Jacqueline and the other people I've worked with, where now they know who they're talking to. And then finally, memoir outline evaluation. I also work with people on their memoirs and nonfiction projects, and it's wonderful. I'm a big memoir junkie, so it's really great to hear people's stories, and I like to take a look at what they're working on and see what their goals are, whether they just want to write a few chapters, whether they want to make a full book proposal, anything like that. So let's get it from I'll do it tomorrow to done in 1 hour. That's the whole thing. Done, dusted, over with, and then you can move on to the next. Because a website or a work is actually always in progress, so why not get it out there looking as best you can and then see what happens. Well, and since you are such fabulous people and you have joined me this afternoon live, I am offering a special offer just for you, no one else. It's you. It's all of you who are on the webinar today. And what I'm offering is to take $100 off your first 60-minute fix when you use the coupon code at checkout, webinar in all caps. It's webinar, all caps. So that's $199 for an hour where we'll work in a Google document where we will get on a Zoom call, much like this one, and I'll record it, like I'm recording this webinar, and we will finish a project of yours. If you're interested in this, and I hope you are, I'd love to talk more with you, you'll want to book it before June 13th, which is next Wednesday. That's when it's over. Sometimes you just got to cut it off. But again, $100 off your 60-minute fix with the coupon code webinar, all caps. Amy raised her hand. I will do questions right at the end, and we're almost wrapping it up. So yeah, and I'm going to answer all your questions at the end because I do not know how to work this side-to-side question thing and the PowerPoint, so bear with me. So the idea gremlin again, get your writing project into the world before I find someone else who will. You don't want that gremlin creeping away. You want that gremlin staying right where it is, right by you, and giving you the good ideas. So you want to get on your writing project before that gremlin just gets tired and moves on to somebody else. Elizabeth Gilbert uses this example of a book she was writing, and she, for some reason or another, couldn't write it anymore. And she was talking to a friend about a year later, and that friend described the book she was writing. It was the exact same book Elizabeth Gilbert had been trying to write, but Elizabeth Gilbert had never told her what she was writing about. That's a pretty tricky little creative gremlin. So anyway, thank you so much for joining the 60-Minute Fix webinar. It's been awesome to have you. I'm going to put a link to the actual website and sign up in the comments. And then I'll also put in where you can subscribe to the newsletter, because if it's not a fit for you now, that's okay. I'd still love to chat with you. And I'd love to see you in the newsletter where I provide more writing freebies every week. Also, you'll be the first to hear about when the next webinar is scheduled, because this was a lot of fun and I'd love to do it again. So again, thank you so very much. I'm going to stop the share right here and get back to my face. All right. Oh, that's okay, Amy. Great, so let me look at a couple of your questions here. Okay, Amy, what's your question? Thank you. Yeah, I try to have some interesting ideas. Yeah, Amy, would you mind asking your question again? I'll be happy to answer it. Oh, yes, so let me give you the link right now. You'll want to book your webinar before then. Let me give you the direct sign up right now. I'm going to put it in the comments. But you can, as long as you sign up for it before June 13th, you know, if